Another thing that most people need to be thinking about, most, not all, but almost everyone has Active Directory in their environment. And that is the most important part if you're using it for authentication and authorization as your central directory for that. So making sure that your Active Directory is as secure as possible.
Hi, I'm Darren Thompson. I'm the Global Vice President for Product Marketing here at One Identity.
And I'm Stacey Blanchard. I'm responsible for our North America sales engineering team at One Identity.
We're going to talk today for about 10 minutes or so about an increasingly important topic for our customers. Many of our engagements over the past 12 months or so have involved the topic of cyber insurance. And so we're going to dive into that topic a little bit today. So Stacey, maybe we could talk first of all about why One Identity, as an identity management vendor, are having conversations about cyber insurance. What are you seeing in the field?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of customers are coming to us now letting us know that they need cyber insurance, they need to qualify to get it. And so some of the topics that the insurers are asking them about are problems that we can solve here at One Identity.
And I'm hearing as well that in some cases, people are no longer even able to get a cyber insurance policy without proving that they are at least somewhat mature when it comes to identity management.
Right, that's true. So there is the entry-level requirements, entry to get your cyber insurance in the first place. And then we can even talk a little bit about taking it one step further and making sure that you can get the lowest premiums that you would like to have.
That makes sense. And so one of the things we're doing right now at One Identity is we're building content and intellectual property. We're adjusting certain parts of our product roadmap to suit this requirement. And so what I thought we'd do, Stacey, is go through a recent piece of blogging that we've been doing around some of the things you can do to, number one, secure a cyber insurance policy, and number two, if you've got one, to reduce the price of that policy. So maybe we can sort of dive through our top 10 list. Do you want to make a start?
Yeah, absolutely. Level a top 10 list, just like David Letterman, right? So I would say the number 10 item would be making sure that you are regularly patching your systems. I mean, this is like table stakes, right? Basic, old school. Everybody believes they're doing this well, but there's some things they need to make sure they're doing also.
It's amazing the amount of customers that I meet that want to talk to me about all of the modern, exciting stuff, AI and machine learning and quantum computing and things like that, and they're still not patching their systems properly.
Right.
And so, in a previous incarnation, I was working in a cyber insurance firm, and what we would do would be assess clients on behalf of underwriters, and more often than not, the patching wasn't happening. And so again, as you say, kind of table stakes. I think the second one on the list for me would be subject close to our heart, Stacey, which is MFA, multi-factor authentication. This has become absolutely table stakes for insurers. They realise that ultimately what criminals are after are credentials. Stolen credentials are much easier to do if we're not implementing MFA. And so most of the questionnaires and the surveys and the assessments that we see in the cyber insurance realm are specifically asking the question, have you implemented MFA? And can you prove it?
Right, and then you also need to make sure that you're doing MFA at all levels, right? The desktop, at the perimeter, if you have a VPN in place, your applications, any servers that you want to get to. So, we see breaches all the time, and the customer says, well, I had MFA in place, but not everywhere, and not unbreakable MFA.
Right, and I think that requires sort of a constant assessment and auditing process, doesn't it, to make sure that as the company changes, the MFA changes, regular testing, and I can't stress enough across all of these items really, insurers expect you to prove it. Right. It's not just a matter of filling out a form and saying I have it, you're going to be expected to demonstrate that you have it as well.
Right, especially if you have a breach and then you try to make a claim, you're going to have to prove that you had it in place.
You're absolutely going to be looking for that, yeah. So what's at number 8, Stacey?
Number 8, I would say, is also old school. Use encryption for both data at rest and in transit.
Right, yeah. Again, we've been talking about encryption now for 30 years. I see this at least as patchy at best, even in some of the biggest organisations that I've worked with. They're certainly they've adopted encryption, often hard disk encryption, but implementation is patchy. And so again, as new departments form or new employees come on board or new applications are implemented, Encryption often gets left behind because it's one of the old things. And so if we do an assessment as to where it's being effective, that tends to be limited. So that's definitely a good one.
Absolutely.
So I seem to be, I've drawn the long straw here because I seem to be having all the identity topics. Next one for me is privileged access management. So obviously this is something we're very good at. We have a world leading solution in this area. But the governance and the protection and the administration of the users that can really damage systems is incredibly important to insurers. And I would say after MFA on the identity side, this is the one that I've seen emerge the quickest over the past couple of years for the insurers. The insurers have kind of cottoned on to the fact that this is a thing. Those super users that we have can be protected, they can be governed properly. There is a solution to do that, it's called PAM. And so now they're asking the question, have you implemented PAM? Can you prove it?
Right, and even within the PAM conversation, there's several levels of privileged access management, right? First step is to vault up all of your privileged accounts, require people to check them out. Next step is to secure any sessions that are taking place with any privileged application or system. And then you can even take it further and do analytics on your system. So being able to prove that you're doing all of that is really important. Also, one final thing is, who is a privileged user? It's not just people, right? There's all these non-human privileged users in your environment as well.
Yeah, really important. That proactiveness, I think, is something that I've seen really materialize over the past 3 years or so. I remember PAM being a sort of fairly passive kind of system,
right?
Kind of set it and forget it kind of a system. Now with analytics and all those other kinds of things, we can be very proactive about not just the people but the machines. And again, as our business changes, we can make sure that our PAM administration challenges are kept in order. So back over to you.
Yeah, so I get all the old school topics. You get all the cool new identity topics. The next one I would say is making sure that you have good backups, redundant backups, keeping them, both on-prem, in the cloud, and also making sure that you test them regularly. So you're sure that your backup is going to work when you need that to work.
Yeah, that's a great, and my history was with in the backup realm actually, and again, this is old school. 15 years ago, we were stressing that backups were really only as good as the restore. Still, we don't see people test them enough. We see people doing the backups. That's an automatic process right now. Many organisations are making secondary backups and taking them offline, etc. Those are good things to do. But if you've never restored your systems, how are you going to know that when you need to, you can? And of course, our systems are really complex now. We've got hybrid environments across on-premise and cloud to think about. We've got just a myriad of applications and operating systems to think about as well. And so unless you've done a full restore of your systems, you really have no idea whether those backups and all the money that you spend on them was actually worth it. And insurers know this. They want to know that you can recover. Let's never forget that the reason you insure yourself largely is to mitigate the costs associated with recovering your business. And so no backups, no recovery. Really, really important topic. So number 5, this is also old school, so I've gone into Stacey's realm now, but this is constantly assessing the access that people have. So do we know who our people are? How many of those people are contractors? How many of the folk in our business really need the privileges that they currently have? Why don't you talk to us a little bit about just in time, because this is a great theme for us at the moment.
Sure, absolutely. So we've recently created an integration that allows for a just-in-time privilege. And what that's doing is, if you think about all of the privileged accounts that might exist in your environment, when someone's not using them and they're sitting out there with the privilege assigned to them, that's a risk surface, an attack surface that's available to any hacker. So what we've done is take away all privilege from those accounts. They're just standard accounts that are also disabled. And at the time of request, when someone actually needs to use it, that's when the privilege is assigned to the account and checked out to that person, also enabled. So account is no good when no one's using it. It's only good when somebody needs to use it. And then of course, when they're done using it, wind all of that down and make sure that it's just a dormant, regular old account again.
So I really like this because this is a little bit like Zero Trust. But I've been around the block a few times and I've never seen a full successful implementation of Zero Trust. This to me is a practical application of that philosophy though.
Right.
So people only have the privileges that they need when they need them, which is kind of a Zero Trust philosophy, but we've made it work. And we've implemented it with customers. We've integrated our technologies to make it come alive. So for me, this is a really good one, and I've got a feeling the insurers are going to think the same thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So to move on to the next one, another thing that most people need to be thinking about, most, not all, but almost everyone has Active Directory in their environment, and that is the most important part if you're using it for authentication and authorization as your central directory for that. So making sure that your Active Directory is as secure as possible. Things like least privileged access within Active Directory, role-based access, making sure that your security groups don't have a bunch of users sitting in them that don't need to have that level of access. So these kind of tie back to privileged access management as well, but specific to your Active Directory.
Yeah, it's interesting. Going back maybe 3 or 4 years now, I can remember as the insurers started to get more savvy with regards to identity in particular, the only two questions they were asking 4 years ago were MFA and Active Directory. Those were the two things. Many of the insurers see just Microsoft generally as a bit of a risk because it needs constant patching. We've seen plenty of breaches where the root cause is something to do with the Active Directory or some other Microsoft component. And so they really want to see that is aggressively protected.
Right.
And so I think a solution like Active Roles obviously helps a lot in that area. We partner with Microsoft in this area. They're really keen on what we do because they know that this can be an issue. The hackers know this is an issue as well. Talk to us a little bit about Azure because that's becoming an issue, isn't it, in hybrid environments as well?
Yeah, so you need to treat your Azure accounts and roles and groups the same way that you would treat your on-prem Active Directory, and make sure that you are also only giving people access to what they need access to there and not granting broad access within your Azure Active Directory.
And importantly, we've got a solution that will do both at the same time as well, so you don't need a separate solution for that.
Single pane of glass as well, because the easier you can make these things for your administrators, the better they're going to be at it.
Right, makes sense. Good, so we're at number 3, getting exciting.
Sure, number 3, we're at number 3.
So risk-based authentication. So this is bringing in that kind of analytics piece, I guess. This is exciting for us because we have the component of access management with our one login model, but we also obviously have the IGA and the PAM stuff as well, and one can feed the other. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure, so I think what you're talking about is behavior-driven governance, right?
Yeah, certainly part of it, yeah.
So part of it is making sure that you're analyzing the risk of any user at any time, and you can step up your authentication when users are either doing things more risky or accessing things that are more risky. An example might be, Darren, you're here with me today in the United States, you log in to your laptop from here, and then maybe 5 minutes later we see a login from you in the UK.
Right.
Well, that doesn't seem normal, so that could seem like a risky behavior, and we might want to prompt you automatically there for another multi-factor.
Yeah, and this goes back to something I mentioned earlier, which is that proactivity, right? So it's all very well having standards or having governance and policy in place, but things change, people change, the world changes, people leave the organisation, people move around the organisation, they move globally across the world to some riskier areas than perhaps where they're used to being. And so all of this context, I think, really needs to be considered when we consider identities and verification and things of that nature. So this idea of kind of a risk-based approach to this, I think, is absolutely critical. So talk about number 2.
Okay, so number 2 is penetration testing. Some people call this pen testing. So this is really getting ahead of the hacker, right? Finding your vulnerabilities before the bad guy does. And most companies either conduct these themselves, but also will hire third-party pen testers to conduct these testing within their environment.
Yeah, I used to be a pen tester.
Oh, really?
Little known fact, most fun I ever had in my career. Being allowed to be a hacker is a fantastic and interesting job. But yeah, really, really important. We can sort of deliberate and tabletop and try and analyse what might happen to us. But there's nothing quite like being attacked. In order to test those defences, I'm always in mind of those Jurassic Park films with the velociraptors testing the fences to intelligently find a way out of their pen. It's the opposite for hackers, of course. They're trying to get in, but that's what this is about. It's about just testing the soft edges of a boundary of some kind for an organisation and finding a way in. Really, really important topic. And so number one, I think this is the sort of really granddaddy of all of this, really, which is having a great incident response plan. I see so many organisations that are great at technology or great at certain facets of technology. They might be really good at identity, for example, but they don't have a comprehensive incident response plan. So in other words, the board of directors down do not know what to do when the worst happens. They don't know how to communicate with one another. The roles and responsibilities are unclear. So really, it doesn't matter how much technology you've got in place because actually PR has fallen over and the press have got hold of this thing and they've destroyed the share price of the organisation. Or it's a weekend and we never planned for that. So having a comprehensive incident response plan, which kind of encompasses everything that we've just been talking about, I think is really, really important.
Yeah, I actually liken this to a good sports team, right? You have your plays, you practice your plays, they're documented, it becomes muscle memory so that when the play happens or when the incident happens, you're just doing what you've trained to do.
Yeah, it's just practice, isn't it? It's just like anything. And so, again, I can't stress enough, this has got to be comprehensive. This doesn't just involve the IT folk. I've seen situations where IT have got this down. They have practice, they know what they're doing, but people on the board don't know what they're doing. The PR organisation don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to communicate externally. And that can really, really damage an organisation. So it's incredibly, incredibly important.
So that's our top 10. We had a few more closing thoughts though, right?
Yeah, give us your first one.
Okay, final thoughts to think about. The first and I think really most important thing is that people need to think about cybersecurity as a program and not a project. All of these parts that we talked about are part of a program. And the most important thought on that is that it's continuous. You're never done. You don't do a project and you reach the end and you celebrate and we're done. No. Continuous improvement and constantly looking for new areas that you can go into.
Yeah, continuous improvement program. We cited examples earlier of encryption. So sometimes you'll see encryption, it was implemented at some point and then it was left behind. That was a project. It was an encryption project and it ended and people moved on to the next thing. That's the wrong approach, isn't it? It's like this has got to be a continuous improvement program. The things that you stand up have to be monitored and maintained and assessed and tested, and new things should be justified by the program. We're doing it for a reason. That actually brings me to the point I was going to make, which is to do with sort of preferred risk tolerance. So how much risk does an organisation want to take is a really important question when it comes to identity and security. The reason for that is because every organisation is different. So I used to work for a Formula One racing team. They are a naturally risk-taking organisation. They throw adult human beings into 250-mile-an-hour racing cars. They have a natural appetite for risk. I've also worked with local government organisations that really don't want to take any risk unless they have to. Their risk postures are naturally different. And so, I always maintain it's really hard to make a good security decision about buying a technology, for example, if you don't know what's acceptable. And coming back to the topic of cyber insurance, in risk management terms, we should be doing one of three things with the risks that we've seen. We should be ignoring them if that's appropriate, because it's an acceptable risk. We should be mitigating the risks if they're unacceptable risks, or we should be sharing those risks. And that's essentially what cyber insurance is. It's just sharing risk on a financial level with an insurer. How can you make those decisions unless you've decided what's acceptable to you as a business? So I would encourage everybody really to think about that.
Yeah, agreed. I think the final thing I would say is the key is really being resilient, right? So it's not always about if we're breached. right? It's about when we're breached. And if you can do all of these other things that we've talked about, then you're going to be able to recover a lot more quickly from that. You're going to be resilient, and your brand won't take as much damage.
Right, yeah. So hopefully that's been interesting to everybody. Quite a lot of content there to kind of chew on and think about. But if this helps anybody really in their cyber insurance journey, then I think it was worthwhile. So thank you very much.